So to continue off what I was talking about as far as social media censorship, okay, which I want to remind people, the right was for free speech, I thought. But the right-wing billionaires are trying to censor people's speech they don't like. Well, you know free speech goes two ways, right? Again, you guys want this open, free dialogue society. At least I thought that's what you guys wanted, and you were mad that you thought the left was going to censor you. What left is censoring who? These are all right-wing billionaires. Now, here's the thing. You know how to solve the problem with trying to worry about people's perception or controlling speech? Maybe don't do things that are unpopular. Maybe fight for a just cause. Maybe actually believe what you promote. That way you don't feel like you have to hide behind filters and smoke screens or use money and influence to manipulate people. Because justice and being on the right side of history does not take a lot of money to convince people of the right, whether you're right about something. If you're doing something that's unlawful and corrupt, money is what's used to cover up what they're doing. Okay? Money is used to control people. Money is used to control the media. Money is used to push propaganda. In other words, they got to finance their lies. All right. Truth and justice don't take money and lies to cover up the truth. Okay. So, again, when you talk about the TikTok ban and all that, it is true that Biden and the Democrat Republicans alike, bipartisanly, and unfortunately bipartisanly, when both parties work together, it's never usually good. The Uniparty voted to ban TikTok, the original TikTok. And TikTok sued the government for that. And TikTok was right to sue the government for that because that was suppression of freedom of speech. I've never supported the ban on TikTok at all. Now, Trump decided to take a lighter position on that because in 2020, Trump wanted to ban TikTok. Okay? So originally, it is true that Biden pushed for a ban on TikTok, along with Republican and Democrats. And usually when they work together, the uniparty thing, it's usually never a good thing. You know, it's about controlling information that gets out. And that was the reason why they did it. Never agreed with it. I never supported that measure. Trump originally supported that in 2020 when he thought it was hurting him. Okay? Because again, if it's not benefiting certain officials, they feel like they got to ban it. All right. That's been the problem for a long time with our government. Censure things that gets the truth out about things they don't want the American people to know about. Because if you're on the right side of history, you don't feel like you got to cover anything up. You don't apologize for anything. All right. So Trump changed his position on the TikTok ban because new owners took over TikTok who were big billionaire backers of Trump. Okay? And TikTok did help Trump a little bit. It gave him more airtime and coverage. It did get more young people to vote for him. That is true. TikTok is very popular, especially with the younger generation. All right? But again, as a result, the new owners that control TikTok is now owned by American corporations, and the American elite are controlling the speech that gets out now. So it's not the same TikTok that was the original TikTok back in 2020. Obviously, it's different. So that's the key issue here. But again, people need to be principled. We have to understand this censorship is not okay. I don't care what your politics are. I can criticize you all day long if I disagree with you, but I'm not going to be advocating for oligarchs to shut down your speech because we don't agree. Okay? So we're supposed to be in the hallmark of ideas and debate on the merits and agree to disagree. That's what democracy was supposed to be about. Okay. Or a constitutional republic. However you view the system, I personally think democracy is better, but a constitutional republic even. In a constitutional republic we even have that. So the thing is, regardless of whether you view democracy as the right course for this country or the constitutional republic, okay, regardless, those values were upheld. So no matter what our worldview is on this issue, on the issue of politics in general, we should all be united on being for the freedom of speech, our First and Fourth Amendment rights. All right, along with the Second Amendment and all these other amendments we have in the Constitution. That should be bipartisan unity. There should not be a partisan flag on every issue. Every single issue's got to be partisan. Why? Why does common sense and justice got to be partisan? That's the key question I have to ask people. Where have we stopped thinking for ourselves as citizens? All right. And that's why it's important to know about civics engagement and our government. Because if you know about how the system works, you will have a worldview that's independent of both parties. You will understand what is simply right and wrong. All right. And sometimes things are not partisan. I know it's hard to believe, but sometimes things don't need to be partisan. Considering how divided our country is, I know it's hard to believe, right? But we have to be independent of both parties sometimes. We have to get out our bubble of tribalism for a minute and just look at the facts and the merits of the issues. All right? Just because Team A says one thing or Team B says another doesn't mean it's so. Doesn't mean it's right. Okay? So that's why it's important to know about our government. That's why it's important to know about how our elected officials are voting and what they're supporting and who's giving them money and influencing them to vote certain ways and think a certain way. Okay. That's why it's important. Civic engagement. That's why it's important for us to speak out and actually have principles and care about the heart and soul of this nation and want better for this country. All right? And at some point, yes, there's going to be fights here and there. We're going to have our little civil wars. We're going to have our fights. We're going to hash things out. That's expected. But when it comes to the most important issues, we need to unite for a better, greater cause and a more perfect union. That's the most important thing. And censorship is another thing we should be speaking up against. Okay. That's all I want to say in this video. See you guys later. Have a great day. Have a great night. Have a blessed day. Bye. Love you all.